And we're back again. Hello, and welcome to the third installment of the It Feels Like Magic podcast. I'm Rosie Vision, and I like to make videos on YouTube. I'm not exclusively a Winx channel per se, but I still cover a lot of Winx Club because it's a series that means a lot to me. I started this podcast purely for fun and so that I can experience the 4Kids dub of Winx for the very first time with all of you. I got a new mic recently, so things will probably sound different, hopefully for the better. Today we're going over episodes 5 and 6 of the 4Kids Winx dub. I really had a fun time with these specific episodes, so let's jump right in.
Watch the dub and open my mind. Believe in 4Kids. Time to unwind. Can it be true? Let's wait and see if 4Kids dub can do everything amazing. Rewatching Winx, come join the fun. Rewatching Winx.
Let's have some fun.
Rewatching Winx.
The first episode we're going over today is episode 5 of season 1, Date with Disaster. I'm going to start with a quick synopsis to get you guys up to speed. Stella gets a letter from Brandon, who's parading around to Sky currently, asking her on a date to the Black Lagoon. The next day, Stella is acting very strangely, and later on, she attacks Bloom asking for her ring. The Winx investigate to find out what's wrong with her. Apparently, Brandon never sent a letter to her, so they try to find the Black Lagoon instead. No one's heard of it, and it isn't showing up when Tekna searches it up. But a strange man suddenly points them in the right direction. However, this was all a ruse set up by the Tricks to get Stella's ring. They hold Stella hostage and try to trade her for it. Ultimately, Bloom decides it's the right thing to give up the ring, so that Stella isn't in danger anymore. And that's everything you need to know about the episode. Let's get into some notes that I took while watching. First off, again, 4Kids has been trying to make the characters more relatable by including pop culture references, but by spraying a can of Winx Club paint over it instead. The episode starts off with the girls making a good decision potion for potion class, which is something that was only in the 4Kids version, but more on that later. And apparently, Bloom found the formula for this good decision potion in Vanity Fairy's new self-improvement guide, so it's gotta work. Cute little nod, I suppose. A little bit strange considering that wasn't something that was done in the original, but I can live with it. It's fun. Now back to that whole potion debacle. The girls are working on an experiment in the kitchen, and they're using things like potatoes for this potion, which, if you've only seen the 4Kids, seems a little bit strange. From what I remember in the original, the girls were actually doing their cleaning and cooking duties at this time, so they had to cook dinner for all of Althea, and that's why they were peeling potatoes and in the kitchen. But there's a plot point that's inserted into the 4Kids version that includes a good decision potion, which, as you might imagine, makes your decision making better. So that's what everyone's up to towards the beginning, which was a strange change at first for me, but it actually makes sense later on, so we'll get back to that. It's actually a pretty big part of this episode. Another funny thing that I noted that happened during this scene in the kitchen is while they're cooking omelets, which is a bit strange with the current 4Kids synopsis, but ignore it for now. They're cooking omelets and one of them goes flying up into the ceiling fan and is stuck there. And instead of trying to figure out a way to get it down, or expressing concern in any sort of way, instead, Musa decides the best thing to do is to start freestyling about the omelet that's on top of the ceiling, which was very unexpected, but it matches her character, I suppose. It caught me off guard. And Another thing that Misa does a little later on the episode is refer to Griselda as Miss G, which once again fits with her current character, but it is really strange to hear this really prim and proper and extremely stern teacher be addressed so casually. But that's just the way that Misa rolls, so it adds character. Another thing that I notice in this episode in general is that Tekna is just on fire this episode. She has so many great burns and sassy remarks. It's pretty unbelievable. For example, Misa asks Tekna and Bloom if she should ask Riven out. And Tekna responds with, "Ask her when her good judgment spell kicks in tomorrow." Which, if you read between the lines, is basically, it's a horrible idea, don't, but with tons of Tekna flair. We'll get back to more Tekna burns later. Let's move forward a little bit. While the Winx are in class, they are in Wizgiz's class, and they are practicing transformation spells and have pumpkins on their head. And one of the students has trouble getting rid of the pumpkin, so Wizgiz needs to help her out. And this is a fairly simple scene in the original, but this scene in the 4Kids version was actually my absolute favorite change that we've seen so far. It was completely random. I'll explain. After the student is in desperate need of help, Wizgiz decides to scare her with a mouse in order to scare the magic off of her, essentially. And after it works, Wizgiz says, "We'll find the antidote one day, Grandpa. I promise." So basically, through some crazy experiment, Wizgiz's grandpa was turned into a mouse, and apparently there is currently no cure, which was completely random and felt like it was straight out of an abridged series, which might be a bit upsetting to some people, but it really made me laugh a bunch, and it was my favorite part of the episode so far. Absolutely sold me. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get back to some Tekna burns again, shall we? When Stella's acting kind of strangely and just being rude and stuck up and unpredictable, the Winx are basically trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with Stella. And Tekna responds, there is a technical term for the way she's acting. Crazy. Which probably wouldn't be as super funny if it were in another series, but I think it works perfectly for this particular dub, and the performance was top-notch. So go Tekna. Before we get to another Tekna burn that I found, there was a new song when the Winx were trying to find the Black Lagoon in order to get to Stella. And honestly, I don't have too many notes on this one. It wasn't bad. I didn't hate anything about it, but it definitely didn't stand out to me, at least on a first listen, in comparison to some of the other songs. So, new song, a little underwhelming for me personally, but it wasn't bad by any means. Now back to Tekna being on fire again. The girls are kind of arguing amongst each other because they're trying to figure out where the heck this restaurant is that Stella went to, and they're worried about her even though she's been acting really strangely and, quite frankly, just rude. And up until this point, Bloom has kind of taken charge. And quick note, she's also the one who has taken the good decision potion. The fact that she took charge is kind of coincidental. It just sort of happened, but yeah. So keep that in mind. She took the potion. And while the girls are arguing with each other, Tekna spits towards Bloom. Just because you took the potion doesn't mean you're in charge. Which is something that I'm actually kind of glad that they put in. Because Bloom constantly being the center of attention is something that people have a lot of problems with. Personally, I think it's okay in the first few seasons because it just kind of feels organic. It never feels like she's the one who has to be in charge. She just has a natural intuition for things. I can't really say the same for future seasons, but that's how I feel like in this current one that we're in. But Tekna does feel like someone who'd want to be in charge, and Honestly, it makes sense for her to take the reins sometimes. She's incredibly intelligent and has a knack for problem solving. And on top of that, she is quite a bit feisty, similar to Bloom, so it makes sense that they clash together like that. So that's a detail that I'm glad 4Kids put in. We have another hilarious scene that follows after this. The girls are about to give up because they can't find anyone who knows about the Black Lagoon, but suddenly, as Bloom describes him, a strange hipster appears and points them in the right direction. And as they're about to thank him, he disappears. And Bloom says, very unsure of herself and super slowly, I think that's how hipsters are. They leave without saying goodbye. Then everyone just goes, oh, accepts it, and walks away with a, yeah, that makes sense sort of attitude. And I had to pause the video because that was absolutely hilarious to me. Not only the fact that they're like bringing hipster culture into all of it, but also the fact that they just randomly assume that they disappear without a complete trace, and that's just a hipster trademark. That was really funny. So kudos to the writers on that one. Speaking of subcultures, Flora, I can definitely see why people kind of make her out to be a hippie, not just because she likes nature and is more chill and stuff like that, but I feel like this dub is definitely pointing her in that direction, because she has a line that definitely makes her sound a lot like one. At one point, when we find out that the place that the strange hipster pointed them to, it was actually not, is a trap, they have to fight the tricks. And before then, they meet with Stella, who is actually not Stella. And Flora tells her, as the fake Stella is being very rude to them, Stella, your aura is really negative right now. Right before they get blasted by her instantaneously, which once again was hilarious. There was also something that I noticed with the music of this episode. So I am familiar with the theme song and the transformation song for this version of Winx Club. However, I'm familiar with the main versions. I didn't realize that there were variations of the transformation theme throughout the series depending on who transforms, which I'm very glad of. Our first example that we get is Tekna. She solo transforms, and I'll play a bit of the song here so that you can understand what I mean. The song is arranged differently to sound more techno. There's a lot more synths, and it just overall fits her nature better. And I thought that was a very cute and thoughtful addition. So that was something that I'm very glad that they did, because it makes the transformations feel more personal. And it's just got a really cute sound to it, so I'm definitely here for that. And since we're on the music train right now, I also thought that the reveal music for the tricks being behind all of this was also really great. I don't have too much to really say, but it was just as dramatic as it needed to be. It packed a punch, and it just sounded good. So good job on that one. And I think this has happened a few times in the episodes previously, but there's this like triumphant fanfare that sounds like what you'd hear during a superhero movie, that uses the main theme of the 4Kids version, using lots of brass and stuff like that, and it's a little bit slower. And I absolutely love whenever they use it. It packs a punch and it feels really good. And I'm glad that they get their own sort of like superhero theme, because that's what they are, honestly. Just really relatable and stylish ones. There's a few more funny lines that I noticed in this episode before I start wrapping things up. During the fight, there's some fun banter and quips between the Winx and the Tricks. For example, Musa says at one point, Friends or not, she's gonna get mused. And then Flora responds, mused? What's that? So even the Winx themselves are confused by some of the dialogue that 4Kids gives them with this strange lingo that they have. And I'm glad that they were able to poke fun at themselves a bit. That was also pretty funny. The next funny line that really caught me in this episode is actually from the Tricks. The Tricks are trying to use a very threatening allegory in order to scare the Winx. Stella is being squeezed by a spell, and then they compare that to popping a zit. And at first, honestly, it's a little bit threatening, up until the point where Stormy says she's gonna be splattered all over the wall. which just thinking about that, except from an acne perspective, just made me laugh more than anything else. Even though, like, ordinarily hearing that sort of thing would be terrifying, when you're thinking about acne in the back of your head, it just becomes more ridiculous than anything else. So that was hilarious. I'm very happy with the writing in this episode, honestly. It was the funniest one so far, and I really enjoyed it. But back to the potion subplot. Apparently, Bloom didn't make the potion correctly. So that means that Bloom being confident in their decision-making skills and then making the right decision to save Stella in the end was all her doing and not thanks to some cheap spell that she found in a magazine, which I thought was the perfect decision and made up for the fact that they added this super strange subplot. Because honestly, I was kind of upset with it until I found out that they did the potion incorrectly, because I was like, come on, Bloom can make good decisions on her own without a potion. Why are we doing this? But then they proved me wrong. And honestly, I think it was a really good thing to add because it gave Bloom a reason to be confident. She still is very new to the magic world, so it'd only be natural for her to not have confidence in herself. But this gave her confidence without taking away from her natural skills by making it all a fluke. So I believe that was a really good writing decision personally. So that's all the notes that I have on this episode. Honestly, it was great. It's been my favorite so far. The performances were good. There were hilarious lines that felt more like humorous ad-libs you do in the studio or put into an abridged series, and I absolutely loved it. And then on top of it, the episode itself is super engaging. Then, as I already mentioned, the addition of the good decision potion I think was honestly the right move because it helps with Bloom's character. So overall, this is S tier for me in terms of the episodes that I've seen so far for kids, which isn't much so far, but still. I don't know if anything else can top this. We'll see. There's still quite a few episodes, but watching this particular episode made me very glad that I decided to give the 4Kids version a chance. Now that we got through episode 5, time to move on to the next one. Episode 6, Secret Guardian.
We are the Winx.
I'm going to do a quick synopsis as always to make sure we're on the same page here. The Tricks are unable to unlock the powers within Stella's ring, and they grow frustrated. The Winx decide enough is enough and plan a mission to break into Cloud Tower and take the ring back. They are successful, but unfortunately for them, Headmistress Griffin catches them in the act. So, Headmistress Griffin makes life difficult for them by attacking the Winx with monsters as punishment for breaking in. Luckily, the Winx manage to make it back in one piece, but are immediately punished by Griselda and Farragonda. Not only are they suspended, but now their powers are gone too, leaving them completely defenseless if the Tricks decide to attack again to get the ring back. And that's everything you need to know about the episode. I'm gonna go through my notes real quick, and honestly, I didn't have too much to say about this particular episode because it kind of follows the same story beats and can be summarized pretty quickly. It wasn't a bad episode by any means, but there was a lot less to take note of. So, here we go. One fun line I noticed was when the Tricks are trying to figure out how to unlock the ring's full power. Icy asks Darcy if she's done a proper search for all the jewelry spells that exist. And Darcy says she made sure to check the Witch Wide Web already, which is a fun play on words, a little bit cheesy, but once again, it fits in with the series well. Taking a slightly darker turn, and fast forwarding a bunch, when the Winx are trying to escape from the monsters that had Mistress Griffin sends after them, there's a bunch of bugs that are chasing after them. And Musa says that the bugs are in her world as well. So Melody, I'm not sure if it was changed in 4Kids or not, but Musa's world. Apparently one got into her friend's castle and she never saw her again. Which was a surprisingly dark turn. I was not expecting that, especially in a 4Kids dub. But that definitely brings up the gravitas of the situation and makes us really fear for what's to come. So good job, I guess. I really didn't see that one coming. Also around this general point in time when they're trying to fight against the bugs, Flora has a mini environmental lecture, which was pretty funny to me. Honestly, yes, obviously I believe that teaching kids about the importance of nature and protecting it is a good thing, but it felt like it changed from Winx Club, a cartoon for younger folks, which is made for entertainment purposes, and then it felt like it transformed to like something that you'd hear in a lecture hall or a PSA that goes on TV. It gave like really big tonal whiplash, which I found really funny. Basically, Flora just says how using natural predators to get rid of pests is safer than bug spray and fire, and better for the environment, which is good to know. But like I said, it's such a huge tonal shift, as if they jumped out of their own show and placed themselves somewhere else, that it's kind of funny, but it's also really good information to have as well. So there was that too. And honestly, like I said, I didn't have that many notes. I only have one other thing that I wrote down for this particular episode. Stella is just being Stella, and that means that she's being hilarious and a little bit narcissistic, but in an entertaining way. Stella says that you can never have enough fire when it comes to bugs, right after Flora's lecture about trying to help the environment and using natural predators. And then she pretty much just pats herself on the back and says, "Good one," out loud, which I think was completely in character for her and was pretty funny. So yeah, that's all the notes that I have for the 6th episode. Like I said, it pretty much follows the original episode beat for beat, so there isn't really too much to comment on, and really not much happens. They just get the ring back and get their powers taken, and that's it. But there were still some fun lines, so it is worth watching. And that's all, folks. I really enjoyed watching this time around. Not that I didn't before, but the 5th episode really took the cake for me. I had to pause multiple times just so that I could get some laughs out. It was the best one by a long shot, so far at least. And I'm looking forward to watching more of the 4Kids version to see if there's another episode that can top this for me. Next time we come around to this series, we'll be going over episodes 7 and 8, Grounded and The Day of the Rose, so please look forward to it. And as always, don't forget to keep some magic in your lives. See you in the next one. Bye.